This is the Note Closer Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today. Maybe you guys haven't heard me talk much about, maybe you know that we have a big passion for helping past and present military and our veterans and stuff like that. You've also maybe not heard the fact that we really do love first responders, nurses, doctors, EMS, fire, and safety and police officers out there. And if you didn't know this, we love to comp those people into our workshops, stuff like that. But I'm always excited to see somebody taking that next step. Maybe you don't know this, but my mom was a registered nurse. She went back to college 20 years after high school to become an RN and really worked for amazing 20, 30 years in children's hospitals and everything. And so I've got a big heart for nurses. And, you know, my stepsister's a nurse, my cousins, I got nurses all throughout my family. All right. And so when a buddy of mine reached out to me just the other day, said, "Hey, I just had an amazing investor on my show who's doing some cool stuff. She's a nurse. She's rocking and getting rocking. She'd be a great guest for your show." I was like, yes. So I'm so excited to have a very special guest today. She is a real estate investor. She's got such a great story. She's a full-time registered nurse. She helps manage multiple departments at a hospital in LA County or LA, California. And she uses her skills and experience in healthcare operations to complete complex real estate deals. Look, being a nurse and being medical, it's a lot like juggling different balls, a lot like real estate here. So she recently completed a real estate syndication deal while working full-time as an RN during the pandemic. And if you guys don't think you have time to get things done, she's going to prove you wrong today. So I am honored to have she's known as the Networth Nurse, Savannah Arroyo, join us today on the Note Closer Show. What's going on, Savannah? How's it going?
Hi, Scott. I'm super grateful to be here. How are you?
I'm doing great. And we were visiting beforehand. And I love what you're doing. I just want to throw this out there for you. You're doing deals. You've got an interesting story. We'll dive into kind of how you got started here in a second. But how many hours per week do you think you're working as a nurse, especially right now with everything going on?
So I'm in management. So I work Monday through Friday. Because I do oversee different departments, I am sort of on call on the weekends, but not really expected to be there. Most of my departments are surgery type procedural areas. So we run Monday through Friday, although when we're on call, we do have to come on the weekends. So about 40 hours a week I'm doing there. I have 2 little ones at home, so I'd make it a point to leave there and be here with them. So
That's good stuff. Now, has it always been that way as a nurse, or did you put in a lot of hours beforehand? Or let's talk about your journey to where you're at right now. Huh?
yeah. So no, I used to work a lot more hours as a nurse. So I graduated from Sacramento State, got my nursing degree up there, worked in a couple different departments, different specialties, moved down to Los Angeles, got my master's degree. When I moved down here, I was determined to buy a house. Everyone from up in Northern California thought I was crazy moving down to LA. You'll never be able to afford a house. What are you doing?
Right.
So I actually worked 2 jobs for almost a year, double shifts to get the down payment for that first house. So I'd wake up, go to my surgery center from 6 a.m. to 2:30, come home, nap, and then work 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I did that multiple nights a week for a year just to save up to buy a house. So,
ooh, how big was that down payment you had to pay the first time?
Oh, yeah. So, because it was my first home, I got in with 3% down. So about $30,000, had to pay off a car loan before that just to get the debt to income ratio as well. Right. But definitely worth it. That house is paid off. I actually just pulled out a second mortgage on it to get started in real estate investing at the beginning of the year. So it's paid off tenfold.
Very nice. Yeah. And that's one of the great things. She's got an amazing YouTube channel that you guys need to check out called the Networth Nurse. Go over there, hit the subscribe button. She shares some great stories. And I love what you're doing on there. So on your story, I remember I was watching there. You were like, okay, kind of what, besides buying your first house, what made you want to take that next step as a crazy real estate investor, huh? What was that? What made you do that?
So real estate always appealed to me just because you hear about people doing it. It seems a little far-fetched and out of reach, especially if you're working a full-time
Right.
job. It's kind of like, how am I going to do that? You hear about flipping. I'm a big fan of HGTV, so I'm following that. It was really working with an amazing lender that proposed the opportunity to me. Like I said, at the beginning of the year when I went to refinance my house, my lender was like, do you know your house has gone up over $100,000 in equity? You can pull this money out, use it for investments. That was so foreign to me. I had never heard of that. It sounded too good to be true. So I I think it was really just working with great people in the industry and he shined the spotlight on that, and I went out and did it.
Nice. And so you pulled some money out and used that to what? To buy a couple properties as down payments on other properties, or what was you kind of thought you were going to do with that money?
Yeah, so we bought a couple single family homes, not here in LA. The price to entry is a little high here. So we were exploring some different markets. I'm a podcast junkie, devouring all the books I could. We invested over in Georgia and Atlanta.
Nice.
We bought a couple of townhomes over there. And then the more I was listening to podcasts and talking to people, I just heard about multifamily and people saying they wish they would have switched over sooner. And then I jumped full force into multifamily.
Right. And so you invested in an apartment complex of some sort, bought one. What was that kind of like?
Yeah. So we bought an apartment complex. My husband owns the business with me. So we purchased our first apartment complex. We syndicated it out to family and friends. And yeah, our first multifamily deal.
Awesome. Where's it located? And can you mind sharing some of the numbers of the deals behind it?
Yeah. So that one's up in Oregon. We have family up there.
Nice.
So we had boots on the ground. We were more familiar with the area. I hadn't heard about a lot of people investing up there. I know it's one of the few states with rent control, so it automatically just deters a lot of investors to begin with. But we started working with this rock star broker up there. He started sending us off-market deals, really strong value add opportunities. And we found one that just offered great returns. We couldn't ignore it. It was a great deal. So flew up there, checked out the property, vetted out a property manager, vetted out a couple of different lenders, and then just really built a solid team up there. And yeah, syndicated it out, raised some money and got it under contract, and now it's ours.
Congratulations. Kudos. I love stories like that. How many units with your apartment complex?
So it's a 12 unit.
Nice.
It has the option to turn a storage space into a 13th unit. So that's skyrocketing in our NOI. That's a big value add part of this deal. So it will be 13 units when we're complete.
Nice. Now that is a wonderful. Now, when you look at it sounds like you got a lender to help finance a big chunk of it, and then the remaining purchase was raised among family and friends. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, we raised $200,000 for it.
Very nice. So how was that? Because a lot of people are scared to have those money conversations with friends and family, you know?
Yes. So that's another thing I've learned getting into the real estate community is that with friends and family, it's sometimes a little taboo to talk about money. People don't really feel comfortable with it. It seems a little weird. People aren't as open and honest, but then you jump into the real estate community and people are just like in your face with their numbers, what they're getting, what their returns. And it's so great because people are just transparent and it's not like a weird thing to talk about. So getting over that hurdle with especially family and friends who aren't in the real estate investor mindset of like being super open about that kind of stuff. It can be a little bit difficult, especially when you're talking about tapping into different sorts of capital, like a HELOC on your home or pulling from your retirement account. That stuff is kind of safe and people's little nest eggs. So they don't like messing with it to invest in real estate when those are sometimes the biggest opportunities that you can pull from. So it's really just education at that point. We really spend the time to educate people wanting to invest with us. We really focus on building that relationship, and we're just so transparent with everything we're doing in the deal. And that goes a very long way.
So I have to give you a bunch of kudos because a lot of people, I've taught so many investors in the last 10 years. There's literally maybe 5% of people will do anything, no matter what it is. Apartments, notes, they'll pull the trigger on anything. You went from buying your first house to buying a couple investment properties across the country in Georgia, around Atlanta. Is that correct?
Yes.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because that's a big, and then we'll get back to the apartment and syndication in a second. But that's a lot of people get scared of. Oh my God, it's not in my backyard. I can't touch it and see it every day. Did you have any of those trials and tribulations when you were beginning?
Yes, we definitely did. It was a big jump. And honestly, that was something that we weren't super, didn't talk about it a lot with our family and friends, because it was kind of like, we didn't want to hear people saying, oh no, you shouldn't do that. That's super, risky and that sort of thing. But then when you listen to the podcast and hear other people talking about it, it's like people are doing it and making it work. And there's technology now that makes every part of that aspect and the process so easy. It's really a no-brainer, especially because we're living in LA. And that's honestly, it was such a hurdle of being like, okay, we want to invest, but like LA is crazy expensive.
Yeah.
How can we do it? And so we really just tried to navigate around all the obstacles in our path, and investing in another state was really our best option in getting started with this.
Well, that's the thing. And you're only a 3-hour flight from Atlanta, or 3.5-hour flight?
Maybe 4.5, depending.
Maybe 4, depending on the day.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I like being as in Austin. I'm like, I say 2 hours on any Southwest flight, and I'm 95%. I'm basically 2 hours from 95% of the country.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. You how long from the time that you decided you were going to do something out of state did you decide on Georgia? And then timing wise, when you decided on Georgia, did you find the properties or townhomes in Georgia?
Yeah. So, I mean, short months, maybe even days. We were really go-getters with this. We really sat down. I think the main thing was in the beginning when we realized we wanted to do this, we had to find our why, which was, we have 2 young daughters. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Congratulations.
Me and my husband both work full-time jobs. It was like, we could really put 100% into this real estate stuff and put ourselves in a position even 5-10 years down the road where we're able to have that time freedom to spend with our girls more than we have now. So we were like, we're putting everything we can into this because we want that for ourselves. And we knew it would pay off with real estate. So we were so focused on our why that it made it easy to make that transition of like, okay, well, this is what we need to do. We set our goal and now we need to take the steps to get there. So we have a couple friends over in Georgia. So we called people over there. I got on Bigger Pockets, started vetting out realtors over there, property managers, really just started networking, talking to people, and made it happen.
Very nice. Well, you're the same people that are in LA. Those same people are everywhere in the country. And that's one of the things. You said Bigger Pockets or meetup groups. So many great professionals all across the country, and great ways to vet people these days, a lot easier than it was just a few years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does your husband do? You all in the same type of field, in the medical field, or is he
he does benefits, so benefits consultant, so similar but not.
Exactly. Well, but it's nice though, because who had the real estate bug first? Was it you or was it him?
It was me. And it was because I was on maternity leave with my second daughter at home, learning about investing, just watching some YouTube channels. And then once I listened to it, it was like every walk I was on with my daughter, I had Bigger Pockets on my ear. I was listening to audiobooks, all these podcasts. My husband would come home from work and I'm like, oh, wait, but look we can do this. And he's like, whoa, slow down. I caught the bug bad.
Yeah, exactly. The real estate bug is definitely bit you. So, but it's always nice when you have couples or spouses that are on the same track, the same goal, supportive. Not everybody's always like that. In some cases, some people get the entrepreneur bug or the real estate bug, and the other's like, oh no, like you just said, some people's families aren't the most supportive because they're trying to protect it because they come from a place that don't know. But it's great seeing it. So let's bring it back a little bit. You bought a couple. They're in Georgia. You found people. You're like, okay, let's get rocking and rolling. Were they investment style properties? Did they need some work? Did you use conventional financing to find those, or private money? Kind of how'd you take those down?
The ones in Georgia?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we were looking all over. We were thinking about doing the birth strategy, got that book. We're really on that. And then we were like, do we really want to oversee a huge renovation across the country? And it was kind of like, that we kind of felt that wasn't really for us. So we connected with a company that does new build to rent projects. So they build it and then they manage it. And personally, we bought our home here in LA and it was a new build. We love it. We've owned it 4 years now. We've never had any issues with it. It's been so awesome to have a new house, and it was in a appreciating neighborhood. So we reaped the benefits of that. And we were planning to do the same thing in Georgia. So we bought in a market that was kind of up and coming, a new build townhome, got a renter in it before it was even built with a year lease in our management company. Because they're the ones building it, it makes sense for them to manage it because they have more interest in it, right? Because they're going to do a good job at building it because they're going to be managing it for how long. So we felt that those interests were aligned, and yeah.
Good stuff. So then they built it. Did you find it was bank financing or private money
Yeah, the financing. So their company works with their favored lenders. So they recommended a large banker that we vetted out, really liked the guy. He had personally invested in these type of deals.
Nice.
His mom had, so it just felt right. They offered us to get in at 15% down, which is great, which allowed us to buy two. Even though we're paying that PMI, it still was worth it to get the two and stretch that money and just make it work.
Well, that's a nice thing too. That's actually an investor style second home or second loans at 85% LTV. That's pretty good. That's especially with the rates being low right now. That's one of the beauties of that stuff is going on. So that's smart. That's smart thinking. So they're occupied. They're being built out right now. What's the situation with those?
So they're occupied. They had renters and signed lease before they were even built.
That's a happy dance for you.
I know they took care of everything for us. It's been great. And we have the online portal, which goes to show the managing from across the country. I have an app on my phone, and I get the maintenance requests in there through the app, and I see them. And one was like something leaked with the washing machine, and it kind of caught my eye, and I'm like, wait, what's going on? I called over there an hour later and they had already had it handled. Someone was going out there, completely taken care of. They're like, don't even worry about it. We handled it. So we've had a really great experience with them. And it was a big community that they're building. And because we bought some of the first homes in them, they're still selling the houses. And we just found out that our same house are now selling for $12,000 more each. So even just within the short amount of time we've owned them, equity 24,000 together. So
very nice. Gotta love that appreciating market. That's always a good thing when you're buying and taking care. That's awesome. So you buy those. You decide you're going to get in the apartments after hearing some podcasts and listening study and making that step. Now, some people never make that jump from single family to commercial out there. Who was, besides podcast books, is there somebody that you learn from or somebody that you really like? Okay, I like the way he or she does what they're doing. I want to kind of model my business after them.
There's a lot of good multifamily syndicators. Personally, I read Michael Blanc's book, Financial Freedom. But there's a lot of great ones out there doing it. His was the first one I read. We actually signed up for a coaching and mentoring program too, just because we were making that shift and because it was such a bigger piece of property, a big building, that we wanted to make sure it was done right. So we wanted to make sure all our underwriting was done right, that raising the capital from investors, just both of those aspects were semi new to us. And we wanted to make sure that we had someone looking over our shoulder and dotting our I's and crossing our T's. So it was worth it for us to invest in something like that.
That makes sense. Now, when you were talking with the bank to finance your apartment complex, how important was your experience versus your team's experience who you were hiring to management? Did that come into play any?
It did. Yes, it was. We ended up using a lender that was referred by the broker. So because they had worked so closely together, they trusted us a bit and then understood what we were doing. The thing with commercial is that they go a lot based on the building and what the building's going to come. So they don't necessarily look too much at your personal financials. I mean, obviously they run them and take it into consideration, but they're basing the loan heavily on the performability of the asset, really.
Yeah, so that you're basically, what was it, 1.25 debt coverage? ratio on things like that. So that
Yeah.
it's pretty normal. That's a great time to be buying, and that's a hot asset class that's doing well. And banks feel pretty good about the appreciation on the multifamily, even with everything going on these days. So have you seen any difficulties? Oregon does have that the rent control aspect of things. Have you seen everybody's been on time for you? Anybody been late or dealt with COVID?
So no, this building has had no delinquency since the beginning of the year. Yeah, crazy. But
that's another happy dance, right?
Yeah, the market in general up there, it obviously it was hit by COVID, but the property manager that's managing our properties, managing other properties in the area, and she says that she's not seeing the delinquencies and that sort of thing because of the COVID. So we felt comfortable getting into the deal, knowing that we had to raise rents. That building had rents that were 18% below market. So our plans to raise those up to market within 3 years, which is aggressive. But she went out to our property after we got it under contract and officially owned it after closing. And she went out and served the 90-day notice for rent increases. And she said every single one of the tenants signed it and it wasn't an issue. So
they knew they were getting lucky undervalued there a little bit, huh?
Yes, they were drastically under market. It was crazy.
So was the previous owner just kind of asleep at the wheel? They were just ready to move it? Elderly, what?
He was an older gentleman. He had owned it a long time. He's down in San Diego, so kind of near to us. He owned different apartment complexes in the area. He honestly didn't have the best bookkeeping, which was kind of a struggle with our lender at first. It really delayed some aspects of the purchasing because the bookkeeping wasn't very good.
Yeah.
So he wanted a 1031 into land, so he was motivated to sell.
Now, have you asked him if he's wanting to sell any of his other apartments yet?
We have started that conversation. We actually have. That was recommended to me by someone else in the real estate community, and we actually are navigating that conversation.
Very good, very good. So you have done an amazing job in a very short time there for you, Savannah. You and your husband both. So kudos to you both there. You've got your why, your focus. You're rowing the boat in the same direction to make some things. Is it your long-term goal eventually to replace what you guys are making on your full-time job to do this 100%, or you think you'll be working in the medical field for a long time and doing this on the side? What's kind of your guys' game plan?
So yes, eventually. Right now, we both love our careers. Sure. I love nursing. It's just a huge spot in my heart. It would be hard to imagine right now giving that up. I don't think I'm ready for that. I love what I do. I love working. I'm a manager now, so I love working with my caregivers even more than I love the patient care aspect of it. So that part would be hard to give up. So I don't plan to do it anytime in the near future, but definitely we're pushing forward in real estate to put ourselves in the position that it's an option sooner rather than later. So
now, have you had any conversations with your coworkers, your doctors, your fellow nurses about what you're doing? They've been keeping an eye on you. And have you had any of that kind of, hey, we've got another deal, kind of raising capital for some extra friends or coworkers? Had any of those conversations?
Yes. So that's sort of a weird path to cross at first because they know me as a nurse there. So it's hard for them to see me as sort of doing something else. So when I first mention it. And
actually, 1 second, I don't mean to interrupt you, but do enough of the doctors have a God complex? They have a hard time sometimes?
Oh, what do you mean? Doctors have God complex? Yeah, I've worked with them, a lot of surgeons, but there's a lot of great guys and gals out there. But it is hard for them to see that in me at first when I bring it up. It always catches them off guard. Like, what do you mean? And because I have 2 small young children, that it's like, wait, when are you finding the time to do this type thing? That's usually the first question. And, I don't binge Netflix half as much as I used to anymore. So, but those conversations do inevitably come up because I'm so passionate about it, and it's what I'm doing when I'm not at work, and I love it so much, and it consumes so much of my day in terms of what I'm listening to and reading and just who I'm talking to, that it does come up. And yeah, it's usually surprise, but then a lot of people are intrigued by real estate. So usually they'll start asking questions. Well, what are you doing? What's this? They haven't heard of syndication. So it's a pretty fun process. I like it.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun. Once you get the bug, it's hard to get rid of it. As I say, you never retire from real estate. you're always an investor of some sort.
Yeah.
The thing I like too, from looking at what you've got doing, you've also launched, done very, I will say aggressively, but real, and I mean it in a compliment, because a lot of people won't take the time to. You've put a website together to talk about raising capital. You've started doing your YouTube videos describing what a syndication is, what your focus is. Most people don't do what you do in their first 5 years, from what we've seen. And so that's one thing I want to throw back out there. So you decided to start doing some videos, sharing what you're doing to do what? To raise capital, get the word out, what you're doing a little bit more. Is that you decided to do it versus your husband, or vice versa? What's been the game plan with that?
So kind of all of the above. I love that you use the word aggressive, because I have been called that a time or two, and I'm just really motivated. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Honestly, I couldn't do this without my husband. We bounce all these ideas off each other. We're partners in everything. So having his support through this and having him on the same page is huge. That it wouldn't get done if that wasn't the case. And in terms of building the brand, it was just wanting to connect with more people, and having a brand allows me to do that. So building this platform, being able to connect with other medical professionals, especially, and just people interested in real estate, having this brand and my website and different platforms allow me to do that easier. And that's really what I'm doing right now to get the word out.
I love it. Now, one of the great things too, it looks like you're spending like 40 hours a week on your real estate stuff and your marketing side. And let's be honest, how many hours a week are you putting? You put a couple days at night from the Gary V 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. kind of thing, a couple on the weekend. What's kind of your schedule to mix it around?
Great question. So I am still navigating this, because this is something you can do 24 hours a day, especially with social media. You can be doing it all night, going on Facebook and joining groups and recording videos, and it's a 24-hour thing. So sometimes I will have to remind myself that I need to turn it off, need to take a little break, because I love it so much that I'm just constantly doing it, and it can be a little overwhelming. I mean, there's always a running to-do list, always. There's always things that you could be checking off. So I definitely, especially having young daughters, I make it a point to make time for them. But I would say after I put the girls to bed around 8:30, I'm hopping on my computer, looking at different things, knocking off things, looking at properties. We still underwrite a bunch of properties, getting sent them by brokers. We're really just so curious about it that it makes it fun. And it's become a really good, I don't know, hobby, but turned career.
Well, but it's become a goal, a united goal,
Yes.
and that's a beautiful thing. You're not, we've got students over their spouses feel like that, oh, you're spending more time on real estate than spend time on me. Well, why don't you get interested in it, and we can do this together, right? Well, you guys are doing it, and that's kudos to you guys. It's so important these days, because especially with COVID, a lot of people have not found those same goals or the same hobbies and have drifted apart. And you guys have definitely done an amazing job doing that and closing things down. How many deals do you think you looked at apartment-wise before you found the one that you pulled the trigger on?
Oh man. Well, my husband is in charge of the underwriting. Although we would look at them all together, I'm sure he spent many, many hours in front of that Excel worksheet trying to make those numbers work. But probably 75, I'd say, around that, give or take maybe 20. But that's pretty, I mean, even if you talk to other investors, they're usually crunching. I mean, they say 100 deals to land one. So the thing about the Excel sheet too is you can make your numbers tell you any story you want to.
That's
you can
true.
Tweak them in any way that makes it look good for you. And it's super important when you're doing that to be patient, because you don't want to aggressively move things to make it work for you, and then you're undercutting some of your budget, and then down the road it over projects, and then it's a huge problem. So we're patient with it, but aggressive at the same time in terms of running the numbers, getting the deals, getting that funnel from brokers, having that relationship to get the off-market deals. It's super important.
Yeah, that is totally. Now, your goal with the apartment complex is to hold on to it for a long time, or hold on to it for 3 or 4 years and sell it off, or what's your kind of long-term your game plan with it that you've got?
Yeah, we built our exit strategy to sell in 3 years. That's kind of the amount of time it'll take to renovate that unit, get it up and going, raise rents to market value. That's sort of the timeline we gave our investors. Obviously, none of us have a crystal ball, and we can't assume that everything's going to go exactly according to plan, but we feel pretty confident that within 3 years we can sell it to get those targeted returns for our investors.
Very nice. And the loan's good for longer than 3 years for you? Was it a 5-year?
It was a 30-year. So there is a early sell penalty, but we factored that into our numbers to make everything work. So
Very nice. Very nice. There you go. I love this. Oh, this is such refreshing. Somebody taking action, taking time in their spare time to, so you're shooting all these excuses. You're like, "Bow, bow, bow." You can't have excuses if you want to find, you can be a real estate, work part-time, make things happen, and really accomplish some big things in a short amount of time if you are taking action. So kudos to what you guys are doing. Now, let's talk about what's the next thing you're looking at. You're obviously using your channel, you're doing some YouTube videos to raise stuff, you're marketing things. What's the next kind of project that you guys are looking to do? The next deal?
Same thing, apartment complex, strong value add deals. We're looking in Georgia, Oregon still, just because we have a great team over there. We have boots on the ground in Reno. I know Texas is hot, but we're kind of looking at New Mexico just because we're favorite of the West Coast, but we're still looking for strong value add deals, looking and talking to investors. We want people to join our party and come invest with us and see what we're doing. So just building up.
Good stuff. Now, what would you say looking back over the last year plus, stuff like that? Has there been a mistake that you guys made that surprised you, that you learned something from?
I think networking, at first, because it was my husband and I doing it, we were just kind of bouncing stuff off each other and doing it ourselves. And we didn't jump into the real estate communities. Like I was on Bigger Pockets, but I wasn't reaching out to other investors to see what they were doing. And I was listening to the podcasts and reading the books, but I wasn't creating the conversations. And I mean, even me and you, the conversation we had before we started recording this interview, you're showing me all these tips and tricks of different things that you can use in social media and stuff. And that is so invaluable. Like I've learned just by networking with other investors, I've learned so much stuff like that's so valuable just to the business and different investments and different things to consider. And the thing about real estate investors is they're so passionate about it that they love telling you what they're doing, secrets they have that they've learned, and tips and tricks. And I wish we would have started doing that sooner.
That's the number one thing a lot of people, I wish I would have started sooner. And obviously, 2020 is kind of eliminated that real estate meetup group kind of networking that a lot of people get started going out to the local RIA club or the meetup group on a Tuesday night or Thursday night, spend a couple hours weekly networking. So kudos to you for taking that step. A lot of people are introverted. They're like, they don't want to ask questions because they don't want to come across as ignorant. And I always say that the only dumb question is the one question you don't ask. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that you said that too, because when we initially started doing that, we were looking forward to the big seminars, going out of state and planning a trip and going to live events. And we were looking at them, looking into booking them. And then this COVID shutdown happened. And then that's, I think, what put the halt on the networking and getting in touch with other people. And then slowly people started coming out with these Zoom meetups, and now there's breakup groups in them. And it's so awesome, the creativity that people have had to still network and create those personal relationships with each other. And we do, both of us now, we attend different networking groups and Zoom calls throughout the week, and they're awesome. So great.
It's that it may not be the same thing as having a beer or a cup of coffee with somebody next to you, but it's about as close as you can get to it, right? For the most part.
Yeah. Working with what we got at this point.
Exactly. So looking at potentially building up so where you can, if you need to break away when because you love what your career is, and that's a beautiful thing. There's nothing wrong with doing it all for you. If you had to think about 5 years from now, what would be a 5-year game plan or goal that you guys have?
I think just building relationships with other investors, operators, and LPs, and just really trying to figure out whose goals align with ours and creating valuable partnerships, mutually beneficial relationships in it, because you can do so much more as a team, and it's such a team sport. And making those connections, I mean, obviously you don't want to get into business with someone just because you're desperate of wanting to do a big deal and joining with someone who has the capital, because you're in it with them for years. So if it's not a right fit, it's going to be miserable. So we're trying to be really aware of who we're trying to talk to and network with, and just building those relationships. And we plan to just kind of build it through there.
Sometimes saying no is saying yes to sanity.
Yeah. In all aspects of life, not just real estate. Not just real estate.
Oh, this sounds like there's a story there. Definitely. Well, that's so awesome. I'm happy for you, excited for you. What's your plan with your marketing side, with your website? Are you looking to get booked on more podcasts, or looking to speak more, leverage that stuff? What are you trying to do with that?
Yeah. So all of that. Yeah. I'm booking some podcasts, getting on here, just because personally, I know that's how I got started. And that was the information that I really held on to in terms of educating myself and seeing what different people were doing. I love hearing people's stories. Everyone comes from different walks of life, no excuses. People everywhere are doing it. I love hearing about people's hurdles and obstacles that they've had to overcome to get it going. And it's just listening to them, it's so motivating for me. So I'm starting to do the podcast just to give back in that respect, and hope people get something from my story, and just really build a presence on social media and connecting with other people.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's one of the best things. I mean, it's kind of like having a book. It used to be the calling card. Oh, I've got a book. Okay, great. I'm a bestseller at Amazon at 2:35 in the morning with everybody. But podcast is like, oh, you got a podcast now. Hey, because I think we find out more, really kind of what's going between the two eyeballs and the two eardrums by listening to somebody on a podcast.
Yes.
You hear what the questions they ask, and you see what they're going through, whether it's solo or how they interview. And that's one of the things I love. I love listening to podcasts too, because it is such a powerful, and the people listening are actually listening. It's not like a Facebook video where they watch and they just slide right, but they're literally listening to 86% of what you're doing. So kudos to you on that. We'll have to spend some more time offline talking about some marketing tips on the podcast for you. But
yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So look, it has been a pleasure to have you here on here tonight. What's the best way for those that are listening to this, or they're watching the video, that want to reach out to you, find them more, follow more along in you guys' journey?
You can find me at the Networth Nurse. So my email or my website is www.thenetworthnurse.com. It's the best way. It has all my social media handles. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, you can find me under the Networth Nurse. And you can email me at savannah@thenetworthnurse.com.
I love it. You got that branded down, girl. Good. Kudos. Excited about that. That's the little things. But I have to tell you right now, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, aggressive is a good term, but also being not being afraid to step outside your comfort level.
Exactly.
So many investors struggle with that. Oh, what if? Well, what if it does happen? Versus the worst, but what's the best thing? So kudos to you guys. Keep up the great work, and we look forward. We're going to have you on again at some point here as the journey continues down that road there for you. All right.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you, Savannah. All right, guys and gals, you can learn a lot. There's a lot of great learning nuggets to take to heart in what Savannah shared on here on this episode. Don't be afraid to learn. Use what's between your ears to listen and read, and quit binging Netflix. Get on and start binging some podcasts, or start reading. We still live in an amazing society, and there's such an amazing amount of opportunities, even what's going on in the real estate markets right now. So don't be afraid to get outside of your backyard. There are deals everywhere if you just know how to look, and how to leverage people and other experts to help you find deals that you may not be the strongest with. And so that's a big thing I think many of you guys should start putting into place. And don't be afraid to network and ask questions as well. So go out, take some action, everybody, and we'll see you all at the top. Bye.